So this sikha, it's not a sikha from Makutei Sichos. It's from Sefer HaSichos, which means it's really a mugedike fabrengen. It's an entire fabrengen that the Rebbe was magia. We're not going to most probably be learning all of it. We're just going to learn the first half, about the first 6 sides or so. And this was on the first anniversary of Teves, the victory of the Seforim, the Didan Natzach of the Seforim, took place on Teves, Tafshin Mem Zayin, I think it was 1986, the end of 1986. Maybe it was the beginning of 1987, I don't remember the date. Beginning of 1987, it was January. And then, a year later, like there's the expression that the Chazal used, Lashona Acheres, and then following year, they like really, the Rebbe gave it like a real strength of a Yom Tov that he identified with it, even though, the truth is, even though that very year itself, it was like the Rebbe spoke a Sikha every single night, the first year, Tavshim Mem Zayin, but this was a year later, the first anniversary, and it became like solidified. And the Rebbe spoke by Shabbos, that year Shabbos was Teves, and the Rebbe Fabrengen spoke about the significance of Teves. What does it mean, the Natzach of Teves? What does it practically mean in our lives? So fine, the Rebbe's library that was in danger of being sold, instead was not sold. Okay, fine, but what does it mean practically in our lives? Like the Rebbe Bechlal does in almost every Maimer and every Sikha, when the Rebbe talks about an Inyan, even according to Kabbalah. So the Rebbe is never happy with just the Kabbalah of the matter. There's many Mamorim that speak about a certain topic that the Rebbe is going to mention over here. In short, it says Vayigash Elav Yehuda. The Zohar says Vayigash Elav Yehuda means that Yehuda is the level of Tefillah. Yosef is the level of Geula. There has to be Mismach Geula Tefillah because one is Yesod, one is Malchus. They have to be connected together. The Rebbe is not happy, and so, the Rebbe is not satisfied with that. When the Rebbe tells us this, the Rebbe wants to say, okay, what is the practical aspect of that? It's nice to have all the Kabbalah, but everything has to have Maisa Poil, everything has to have an Avodah. The same thing the Rebbe wants to bring out, the Maisa Poil. True, it was a great simcha, especially those that were there, and we saw how the Rebbe really was suffering all that time of the Seforim being gone and the Seforim being under question, and the great simcha that there was of the Chassidim to finally see the relief of the Rebbe from his suffering. So that's an amazing situation. But the Rebbe always wants to connect with the practical, and that's what the Sikha is going to be about. So he says, "L'chol l'roish yesh lahaschol v'parshas hayoyim k'vi shekvar echrizu ba'ofen shel pirsum nisa." As we know, there is a mitzvah to be mefarsim anes, just like we just came from Chanukah. There's the mitzvah pirsum nisa. Oidus ha'ma'ura she'ira b'yoyim zeh hey tevis b'shana she'avra sheboy haya didan natzach, that ours was victorious. So the Rebbe right away explains this. We shouldn't think that Didan Natzach means my victory. The Rebbe was not looking at it as his personal victory, or even that the phrase Didan Natzach is the victory of Chassidim, but rather the Rebbe put it on Hanitzachim Shal Seforim. And the Rebbe's attitude has always been with Seforim, like the Rebbe would treat them with such amazing type of attention and respect, and like to the degree of a human being almost. That the Rebbe talks about the Geula of the Seforim. The Rebbe speaks about Pidyon Shvuyim of the Seforim. Maybe we'll speak about this more later. Pratis Yoiser Hameduber Oidus HaSeforim Shel Sifrius Agudas Chassidus Chabad Lubavitch Shehukma v'nisrach v'aydei u'b'nisiyusay v'hanalosay Shel Kvoidus Meirach HaMe'ad Monesiderenu Oid Bi Yoiser Mdinahi, while he was still in the Soviet Union. As we know, the Rebbe always uses that language when he talks about the Soviet Union. He calls it Medina Hahi, that country. Ubitziasim Mdinahi la'achri yemei hagula yud beis yud gimel tammuz nigelu v'yotzu gam hasforim In other words, the government initially was not going to allow the Soviet Union, even though they were going to allow the Frierdiker Rebbe to leave, but they didn't want to allow the Seforim to leave. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said, if you're not allowing the Seforim to leave, I'm not leaving without them. Which means, literally, the government said, okay, fine and good, you're not leaving without them, stay, and who knows what else we'll do to you afterwards. So the Frierdiker Rebbe was Pashut Moiser Nefesh for this library of the Sifrei HaSagudah Chassidus Chabad. והגיעו סוף כל סוף למדינה זו, שבה נסרחבו מעמדה של ספרי אגודת חסידות חב"ד לבביש. ומויסה והוילך עד היום הזה. The Rebbe is saying, even though theoretically, the Frierdiker Rebbe is not here with us, lamata masar tvachim and aguf, but the library was still growing. It's still considered that the Frierdiker Rebbe is in charge of this library. It's still considered the Frierdiker Rebbe's library. Why? How could it be Yaakov Avinu Lo Meis? We see that he did pass away. But because it says Mazari b'chaim, Afu b'chaim, Ma'alahal Noim the Meshamish, Afkan Noim the Meshamish, so the Rebbe is saying the Frierdiker Rebbe is still in charge of the library. And the Frierdiker Rebbe is making sure, through his children, through his followers, through the Rebbe, through the Chassidim, that the library is going on and growing. In other words, a world-class library, not up some private collection in a basement. Again, the Rebbe places the Natzach, it's the Seforim's victory. It's not his victory, it's not Chabad's victory, it's the victory of the Seforim. Because the Rebbe is saying that these Seforim are nachlas haklal. The people wanted to go ahead and sell it as a private thing. They want to break up the library and sell it for their own personal gain. So therefore, what they're doing is they're robbing a national treasure. Can you imagine if lahavdil you had the Library of Congress, lahavdil havdallah, so you have the libraries of big universities or whatever, or in Eretz Yisrael types of big libraries that they have. All of a sudden, somebody's going to start selling books from it, and you're robbing. It's a national treasure you're robbing. The same thing that Rebbe is saying. This was something by the victory of this forum. This was a victory for Yiddishkeit that's involved in Torah learning. The Rebbe saw the library also as a tool for spreading Yiddishkeit. So by the library continuing, so therefore the spreading of Yiddishkeit and the spreading of Chassidus would continue in a stronger fashion. Here the Rebbe uses the same term, the same pasuk that the Alter Rebbe uses when he went out of prison, but the Mittler Rebbe said when he went out of prison. He's identifying the imprisonment of the Seforim and the victory of the Seforim with this pasuk as well. And Chazal say, what does it mean, the words ki berabim hoyu imadi? Shagam anshe avsholem hispalu and etzchoyne shel David. So the Rebbe gives it like the full force of a Yom Tov. That just like we say any other Yom Tov, that it repeats itself annually whenever the date comes out. It has the power of that Yom Tov. The same thing, the Yom Tov hey Teves. The famous word of the Baal Shem Tov, that when we remember the events, so the same spiritual occurrence that took place previously is reoccurring now. Didan das Seforim Natzach. Here the Rebbe emphasizes again. It's the Nitzachim of the Seforim. It's the victory of the Seforim. Yesh lishol es Seforim atzmo. You need to inquire by the Seforim themselves. What makes you happy? How do you celebrate? What was your victory? So the truth is, every single time when a Yid needs to know how to celebrate anything, he has to look in a Sefer. A Yid is directed by Torah. Torah tells him how to celebrate anything. But here, specifically, where it's the victory of the Seforim themselves, of course we have to ask the Seforim to tell us how to do it. A Sefer Harishon va'ikri ha'koil es kol ha'Seforim who can move on Sefer Torah. Hachom Sefer Torah shekasav Moshe Rabbeinu v'nosnohu ba'aron lo'ad. There's a Sefer Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote, and he placed it in the Aron together with the Luchas, and that still remained in the Kodesh HaKadosh. Shehu hamakir l'chol sifrei ha'Torah shekoishim u'matikim u'magiyim zeh mezeh ad l'Sefer Torah de Moshe Rabbeinu. There's a halacha that a person needs to be magia a sefer from another sefer. A person can't go ahead, a sefer, and write something because he knows already the Torah Baal Peh. You're not allowed to write that way a sefer Torah. One needs to see another sefer from that to be magia. So in other words, it comes out that even a sefer Torah written this year, here and wherever in America, is something that goes back, traces back its lineage all the way to the sefer Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. The sefer Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote, or B'chlal Sefer Torah, Koilas Kol Hasforim, Kol Prote in Yom the Torah Shebal Peh, as we know that everything that comes out in Torah Shebal Peh is part of Torah Shebiksav. Ukol Shreina Rambam Magdamasel Sifrei Mishneh Torah. Kol HaMitzvah Shenitn Lo LaMoshe Misinai B'Pirushon Nitnu. That means when Moshe Rabbeinu was told in the Torah, V'hoyu l'tetafis b'nei necha, he wasn't just left hanging and just told, V'hoyu l'tetafis b'nei necha. He was told, you know what tetafis are? Tetafis is a compartment that's made up of 4 compartments and it has 4 parashas in it and so on. He was right away told. He was immediately identified, this is what tefillin are, this is what a mezuzah is, etc. So the Chazal say, what's this Torah and the mitzvah? The Torah includes it already, the mitzvahs. Why does it say a Torah v'es a mitzvah? Torah zu Torah shebeksav. In other words, the Chamish Chumshei Torah. V'mitzvah zeh pirush Torah shebal peh. Now, we call it Torah shebal peh, but it's written down. So he says, Asher pnei eis l'Hashem goymer hitiru l'koisvim. Like we know, that originally one was not allowed to write down the Torah shebal peh. Only because of the difficult situation, the times that there was a concern that with all the golus and everything, Yidden would forget the Torah Shebal Peh, so they were allowed to write it down. So he says, Hainu Mishnah, Gemara, Pirusheim, B'divrei HaGoyim, Cholo, Ad l'chiburi shel HaRambam, Kfi shekoisev b'Agdamasi l'Sifri, shebenoisi b'chol elu HaSvarim. I understood all these Svarim. V'reisi l'chaber dvarim HaMisbarim, kol elu chiburim b'loshem brura b'derech tzara. So the Rambam gathered everything in the Mishnah and the Gemara and the Svarim of the Goyim, and from that he took out the halacha, and then further L'achar is a chibra shulchan aruch to Beis Yosef, chibra shulchan aruch shel bein hazakin, halachos v'tahameim. The uniqueness of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch is that he writes not just the halacha, but he explains the source and the reason for the halacha as well. V'chein piskei dinim v'sifrei kol gdolei Yisrael l'doreseim kol ma shetalmid vasik asad l'chadish shenitan l'Moshe Messinai. All of that is included and a continuation of the Sefer Torah, the first and ultimate Sefer. Like we just now said, all of it comes from the Sefer Torah. So the Rebbe brings a very interesting thing. There's also a Sicha, the Rebbe talks about it in Chelik Yutes, that there's a mitzvah to write a Sefer Torah. Does that mitzvah the same way these ways apply? True, the Rebbe had the whole mitzvah of Sefer Torah, everybody should buy a letter in the Sefer Torah. But what about until that time? A lot of people did not buy a letter in the Sefer Torah, definitely did not write a Sefer Torah. How did they fulfill the mitzvah? So he says, the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah is a very practical thing. So we should be able to learn Torah. And these days that we don't learn Torah out of a Sefer Torah, Rishonim bring down that how do we fulfill the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah through other Seforim. This is what he says now on page 177. Kosovo Rosh. The early generations, they used to learn out of a Sefer Torah itself. And it's not used as a private individual. I don't come home and I learn Chumash out of a Sefer Torah. I don't sit down and learn with my kid the Parsha of the week with the Sefer Torah. I don't do Chitas with a Sefer Torah. The Sefer Torah is always put inside the Aron Kodesh in the Shul. So, therefore, the Chiyuv of Ksiva Sefer Torah is not a Sefer Torah these days. Mitzvahs Asehi al kol ish mi Yisrael asher yodim aseges lichtov chumshei Torah o Mishnah o Gemara Pirusham legis behen hu bonav. In other words, the Seforim that a person would use, those are the Seforim he has to write or at least buy or print. Ki mitzvahs Ksivas HaTorah hi lilmoid ba. There's no separate mitzvah, according to the Rosh, of just writing a Sefer Torah and putting it away in our Aron Kodesh. The mitzvah of writing is to learn it. So therefore, the main mitzvah is to get the Seforim, print the Seforim, write the Seforim that you're going to learn it. K'dichsiv, v'lamda es bnei Yisrael simma v'fiyam. V'aidei ha-gemara v'ha-pirushim, yeda pirush ha-mitzvahs v'adinim al buryam. These days, to fulfill the mitzvah that's known, the last mitzvah in the Torah, by the way, the last of the 613 mitzvahs is the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah. It's not just the Rosh is a Rishon, we don't pass him from the Rosh. So he brings now the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch himself writes, Sha'idna these days, mitzvah lichtov chumshei Torah, Mishnah, Gemara, Pirusheim. And the Rebbe right away says, it's not, the emphasis is not on the writing. I don't have to go ahead and take a chumash and start writing down a chumash. That's not what it means. Why? So the Rebbe says, literally, I fulfilled the last mitzvah in the Torah by going online, going to Amazon, ordering a sefer. I fulfilled with that the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah. Shagam hayodim nase ikr v'tachsa mitzvah v'lamda goymer sima b'fiyam limud v'yediyas ha-Torah. That's the reason why there's the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah. V'nimtza she'av she'yeshmich Sefer Torah ha-sefer harishon v'ikri ha-koil as-kol ha-sfarim m'kol malkim kedei she'yih ha-limud v'poil v'lamda goymer sima b'fiyam tzarech lilmoid loy b'sefer ha-ikri v'ha-klali ala beribuy asfarim hamevarim umefarshim bepratis ubeprati pratis as kol ha'inyanim shebesefer ha'ikri v'haklali asher al yadav dafke nasa ha'shlema sefer Torah v'lamda goyim l'sima b'fiyam. So, even though the Sefer Torah is the ultimate sefer, but that itself, the ultimate sefer itself, realizes its use when we can actually practically observe what it says in the real Sefer Torah. How can we practically observe it? By learning all the Seforim that explain it. The Inyan zeh mudgish kam bechiluk bein halimud b'Sefer Torah lelimud b'shar haSeforim chumshei Torah Mishnah v'Gemara Pirusheim heim b'negel zman halimud heim b'negel la'ofen halimud. So the Rebbe says it's a very practical difference. Like I said, the Sefer Torah is put in the Aron Kodesh. And when are we going to use it? How do we use the Sefer Torah? Completely different. The times that we use it and how we use the Sefer Torah is completely different than all other Seforim. Zman al-limud v'akriya b'Sefer Torah einay ela b'zmanim kibuim. We read it b'yom Shabbos, b'sheni v'chamishi, v'kiyotze b'zeh, other days like Rosh Chodesh, Yimei HaTainis, whichever occasions demand that we should read in the Sefer Torah. And also, it's not everybody who reads. When we have Rosh Chodesh, when we have Shabbos, it's only a few people from all the kol that's there that reads it. Rak ha'oilo l'Torah v'ha'koyre b'Torah v'yilu kol ha'tzibur shoym mesakrim techumash man itfasim. They don't even look inside the Sefer Torah. Ma'she'en k'menegel l'shar ha'sforim chiyuv ha'limud b'hem u'b'chol yoym v'yoym u'b'chol rega pani whenever we have a free moment. That is when. So there's a big difference in the when of a Sefer Torah and the when of all other Seforim. V'oifen ha'limud, how we learn it. Halimud v'akriya b'sefer Torah tzarich liyas betachlis hazihirus b'kvoida v'shleimusa shel sefer Torah ad lazihirus shloi lagas b'sefer Torah l'loi mapa v'chulu. We're not supposed to touch the actual Sefer Torah itself. This is one of the reasons for having a yad instead of touching the place in the Sefer Torah with one's finger when they want to point out the place. So you use the yad instead to be able to point out the place. Obviously, you can't handle Seforim in a not respectful manner. The way a person reads when he takes a look at the Sikhs and he learns. It's not with the same care that you do a Sefer Torah. Why is there this difference in time and in manner of reading a Sefer Torah to others for it? Shakriya b'Sefer Torah ikra loy havanas toichen al limud. This the Rebbe says in the footnote. This is the reason why an Amma that even doesn't know why Lo Yoda Mike Amar, he doesn't even know what he's reading, he still makes a bracha on the Torah. Because it's about the holiness of the Torah, not the understanding. V'adei meteva hadvarim shebe'eis halimud b'havana v'asagim yefsher lahagdish meloi tzumas halev lezehirus v'shmira betachlis al shemusim shel sifrei halimud v'adrabe halimud kedebayu ba'ofen shemedaftich mholech v'shov Sefer Echad, Mishneu, Ad Sifrei Halimud Bolim v'Nekroim Medroi Bashimush Al Derech Lashna Mishnah Hafachba v'Hafachba v'Leiba. In other words, that the Seforim, if a person is really involved in learning, he can't pay attention to the condition that the Sefer is being mistreated. I made a rip in the Sefer. Here's a bend, here's a knate, here's a stain. I'm too involved in learning to pay attention to these type of details, and they don't really matter. I think the Rebbe used to tell people some type of expression about certain Seforim, maybe when he gave the kids Sidurim. I don't remember this for sure. Don't quote me on this. Something like Tzerais Gesundheit or something like that. Tear it, or he gave a type of expression that meant, use it so well till it falls apart. Don't a lot of people, they got Seforim from the Rebbe and they're too scared to use it. It's over there on the shelf, it's very nice, it's very pretty and everything, but they never use it. The Rebbe always wanted that the Seforim that he gave, different occasions, the Rebbe gave out Seforim, that people should use it. Pirusha, Sha'af Shegodlo v'Yoyser miles for Kedush Sefer Torah, Mikol Makom Shleimus HaSefer Torah is when we use the other Seforim. V'lamdas Bnei Yisrael Simu V'fiyam, Hu Hayedei HaLimud B'shar HaSeforim Davke, Shal Yodam Yoidim Pirush HaMitzvahs V'adinim Al Buryam. So the Rebbe makes an interesting connection over here, and he's saying that when does the Sefer Torah have its real meaning? When we learn a whole bunch of other Seforim. Because then, with those other Seforim, we can know what the Sefer Torah is really about. So the Sefer Torah needs all these other Seforim. So even though the Sefer Torah is the highest Kedusha, still in all, it expresses itself, it shows itself in the other Seforim. Oizdal. V'yesh l'hoysev shad goshes ha'limud mitech Seforim an itfasim hi loy rak menegel lepirusha shebehechrech l'lamdei mitech Seforim an itfasim shebehem nichtav ha'pirush l'torah shebeksav. For sure, when it comes, when you're reading the Sefer Torah itself, if you read a Sefer Torah, you don't have Rashi, let's say, on the Sefer Torah. So obviously, you're going to need to learn Rashi, and you're going to need to learn Gemara, and you're going to need to learn the Mishnayos, and you need to know the Shulchan Aruch to be able to know what does it mean when you read in the Sefer Torah, V'hoyle Tavis Bein Hanechem. So here I could see how all the other Seforim add something to the Sefer Torah that Sefer Torah doesn't have. What about Torah Shebeksav itself? What about learning from a Chumash versus learning from a Sefer Torah? So seemingly you would say there's no difference. Here's a pasuk, here's a pasuk. So he's saying Ela Gam Benegel Torah Shebeksav Atzmam. B'negeya l'chiyuv d'chol yochid lahashlam parshiyosim matzibur, what's called Maver Sedra. Shenoisav lakach sheshemeh kol haTorah kulo kol Shabbos b'tzibur. In addition to that, chayiv likros la'atzmim b'chol shavua parshas oisei hashavua shnayim mikra, twice the chumash ve'echad targum, and once you have to read the targum. And the Rebbe brings an interesting anhage from the Arizal. Motzinu sha'Arizal hayanoyeg likros haparsha kol pasuk beis pa'olim tech Sefer Torah kosher, to be Maver Sedra. And in the footnote he says, and what did he do about the Echot Targum? The Echot Targum is not printed. So he says in the footnote, one of his Talmidim would read from a Chumash for him the Targum, and then he said it after. Interesting thing, this is brought down even in halacha, that the ideal is to take a read out of the Sefer Torah. He knows Torah. He's, let's say, Balkaida, so he knows how to read it with the Torah. He doesn't need the Chumash to show him the Torah. That's the Alter Rebbe says, Allah and Shulchan. It wasn't just that Rizal did it, Al Pi Kabbalah, whatever, because he is a very holy Jew. The Alter Rebbe brings it down Shulchan Aruch. V'afal Pikein, haminig b'poil ma'iserav, gam etzel g'dol Yisrael, v'chein etzel Rabbi Seinu Sienu, that they didn't do this. Shekoirin shnayim mikra loy mitach Sefer Torah kosher elo mitoich chumash man etfasim davke. So again, what do you see? How printed Seforim have an advantage over the Sefer Torah. Shebezem mudgish oid Yisrael the Seforim man etfasim. Noisav lakach shal yodam nase ikra shleimus Sefer Torah v'lam da goyim asim avfiyam limud v'yediyah spiritual mitzvahs v'adinim al burim. The Rebbe says in the footnote that the reason most probably why this was done in such a manner, why take it's something that's brought down in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, the Rabbeim and other Gedolei Yisrael were very much medagdeh b'mitzvahs. Why take didn't they use the Sefer Torah? Because of the issue about take being able to read the Targum. That's the pashtastic reason.
Basically, it's mutar to take the Sefer Torah and read from it, like that.
That's halacha Shulchan Aruch. The Alter Rebbe says that. Yeah.
Aren't there issues with taking out the Torah like that?
Again, you see what the Alter Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch. It's not just, somebody say the Arizal was extra holy, did it. The Alter Rebbe says it openly in Shulchan Aruch. And the Rebbe says that the only issue was that the Rabbeim didn't do it, or others didn't do it, is with Pashas because of the Targum. In other words, you could do that. Again, as long as you're careful, you don't touch inside the Sefer Torah without a mapper, you don't touch it with your finger, whatever types of zehirus you have to do, as long as you...
Like you take the Torah and read from it.
Yeah.
If I want to know.
And like we mentioned before, that was the Minhag Yisrael before we had print or before everybody was able to write. What did they do? They had the Torah, and that's how they learned the Torah. Very simple. That's how they learned Chumash. You learned Chumash from the Sefer Torah. I say, Al Pizem Muvam Bahanalu Bagdam. So the Rebbe a lot of times likes to contrast in a Fabrengen type of language more how the world would approach something and how Yidden approach something. When we talk about something that's precious and expensive and valuable and has a lot of significance, so then there's the worldly way and the Torah way. Al pi anachas ha'olam, nitzchoyne shel davar yikar erech, k'mei avonim Teves margolis, hu bezeh, shemoisifim bekvoidai of these avonim Teves margolis, ayde shmirasi b'makim achim mechubad shlo yigu boy, v'alachs kam v'kam shlo yishtamshu boy, u'lechol ha'yoyser l'roisim izman l'zman. Let's say a similar situation. If there was an argument over a dispute where somebody stole someone's diamonds or whatever, what would they do? Would they now put it out for everybody to use? Adrabah. They would make a greater security system. They would hide it away more. You would see even less of it. And the truth is that the Rebbe says that there's a similar idea that we find in Kedusha in Binyan Beis HaMikdash. U'metzinu de Gemasa gam Binyan HaKedusha b'negel Binyan Beis HaMikdash. Drush Chassidus the Parts HaShavua, Parts VaYigash, Mevuer HaIlid Beis HaMikdash l'gam HaMishkan, Sha'amishkan hoya me'arozim. Cedar wood, atzi shitim oimdim. Koiris bateno arozim min hatzemeach, which is a higher type of quality of existence. Something that grows is more chashuv, has more life to it than an inanimate thing, than a diamond. Ubeis hamigdash netoises by ha'ilu the diras kava loidak ve'eyim mashalach ba'oil, which is the description for the mishkan and the oil moed. Haya ma'avanim dafke min ha'daimim, which is very strange. Beis hamigdash was a higher kedusha. Shouldn't that have had a higher type of existence? Shouldn't it have been from Tzemeach? Not only that, another one talks about, and on top of that, the Mishkan had min hachai, the oiris that were made from animal skins. The top was made from animal skins. In the Beis Hamikdash, it was kulei diamond. It was concealed in the walls. There was some wood, but b'chitzonis, it was entirely made from stones. So he says, Valderech ubedugmas ha'ilui di Yehuda, which is bittul b'chinas hadoimim hapam oides Hashem. Chassidus explains that Yehuda represents the idea of bittul. Legabe Yosef is lashon teisefes v'ribu b'chinas tzemeach. The idea of tzemeach is it grows, it increases, like the word Yosef. La'asid lavi. When Mashiach comes, we will see the advantage, the quality of Yehuda over Yosef. In this week's parsha, it says, Vayigash Yehuda to Yosef. Vayigash Elav Yehuda. That Yehuda approached Yosef. Meaning that Yehuda was less than and had to come on to Yosef. Yosef was the Shalit B'chleres Mitzrayim, and Yehuda had to come on to him. Because that level was what was higher these days. But when Mashiach comes, it's going to be like the times of the Beis Hamikdash and so much higher that we're going to say that Yosef and Yehuda are going to come together like he's going to bring from the Haftarah. V'David avdi nasi aleim lo'olam. Let's see it inside. She'b'makim ha'in vayigash elav Yehuda. She'Yehuda nigash li'Yosef l'kabel hashpa'ah mimenu. Instead, Yis'ala Yehuda li'is l'mayla mi'Yosef. K'mashakasa b'Haftarah. Hina nilakeach as eitz Yosef goyim v'nasati oisam olav l'mayla mimenu. As eitz Yehuda. Yechezkel HaNavi was described in the Nevuah that we're going to read in this week's Haftarah, that he would write on one piece of wood, he would write Yehuda's name, on another piece of wood, Yosef, and then he places the wood of Yehuda on top of Yosef. As Eitz Yehuda, Vasisim Leitz Echad, Va'avdi David mi Yehuda Dafke Melech Aleim Goymer Nasi Lehem La'olam, just like the Avonim were the main thing in the Beis HaMikdash. V'hinei. So it's a very interesting thing. This is all a side point to what he's trying to say, that from the perspective of the world, the valuable things are not something that's open. So let's look, what type of stones were the Beis HaMikdash made out of? They weren't made out of precious stones. V'hinei afshe Beis HaMikdash hutzach liyas ma'avonim dafkim mikol mokim loy banuhu ma'avonim Teves margolias ela ma'avonim stam. Ve'ilu avonim Teves margolius no yadu l'choyshen ve'efen ve'efed ve'bigdei kahuna the kohen gadol l'chavil l'sefaris. So we see the more precious something is, the more limited its scope, the more limited. It's only the kohen gadol. Kohen gadol had covered. You didn't make the whole Beis Hamikdash where everybody walked and where everybody was. You didn't make it out of avonim Teves. The Raya Nesefes v'Kroiva Yoser Sefer Torah. Sheshoymerim oise bekovet gadol bar and kodesh, like it says in Halacha, leyachid l'sefer Torah mokim l'chabdei l'hadra yoser medai. How special we have to keep it. But along with that, avlav sefer Torah atzmei madgish sheshleimusay ayde halimud vayegiachulu. B'shar Seforim shemishtamshim behem l'limud yom yomi. Like we said before, the Sefer Torah wants us to use all the other lesser important Seforim. V'nimtza shenitzchaynim shal Seforim al pi ha'Torah k'mefurish ba'Seforim atzmam hu loy bekach shemekanu la'aba yishmru aleim b'kavod gadol shloi liga behem chulu al derech hu bedugmas hashmir al Sefer Torah bar ha'kodesh chulu ela adrabe shemoisifim a yoser ba'shimush v'alimud ba'Seforim. And the Rebbe gave a directive concerning the library, that it should be more open and more available than it was before, for this very reason. librarians are always, very, very careful, especially the library of Good Chabad that has old manuscripts and everything. You're worried about it getting stolen, but you're also worried about a lot of people using it and it getting ruined and so on. So the Rebbe said, how do we express the Natzach of the library of Agudas Chassidus Chabad? Open it up to the public, make it more available to scholars and people that need it to learn and so on. And but that's what he told about the library Bechlal. But here the Rebbe is talking about in general. The more people use Seforim, Nitvasif Yoser Bechvoidem Shal Seforim Gam Im Yivla V'Yikra Sefer Meroiv Limud. A person shouldn't think, if I use the Sefer too much, so I'm being mevazeh the Sefer. He says, no, the biggest honor for the Sefer is that I'm using it till it falls apart. The Sefer Torah that is kept in the Aron. ובלושן חז"ל כדיסו בטון באליהו רבה שני דברים קודמו לעולם Torah וישראל. Both Torah was before the world, like those that know from Bar Mitzvah Maimer remember it for themselves. It says Alpayim Shona Kodma Torah La'olam. The Torah preceded the world by 2,000 levels, and Yisrael Kodma La'olam. The Eini Yadea Ezmem Koidem Kishu Oimer Tzavas B'nei Yisrael Dabra B'nei Yisrael Oimer Ani. Who's the Oimer Ani? It's Tana Debei Eliyahu. This is what they learned in the yeshiva of Eliyahu, meaning Eliyahu Hanavi says, She Yisrael Kadm, meaning, if it says in the Torah, Savas B'nai Yisrael, that means there's a B'nai Yisrael already who you are telling that there should be done. So that means Yidden came before Torah, meaning they're higher than the Torah. Hainu Torah Atzma Machriza She Yisrael Kadmum Mekivin Shein Yana Shal Torah Atzival B'nai Yisrael. Over the Gmasei Benidin Didan. Don't put the Seforim on a pedestal. Don't hide it away on the shelf. The Rebbe a lot of times by Fabrengens used to say with a little bit of a laugh that there are people that they write down the sichos or they record the sichos or they get copies of the sichos and then they put it away on the shelf and make sure it sits over there nicely. It looks very beautiful, and that's the amount of their connection that they have to the sichos. The Rebbe wants that we should learn it. Shasfarim asma machrizim shetachlisam materosam amela gam kvoidam. This is what's called the kavod of the sefer halimud bahem. Afilu al cheshbon shleimusam shasfarim sheyivlu v'yikru malroiv al limud. So the Rebbe says that this is the hira hamurim mekala amr b'negel lepoil shemekanu lavot sarich lavi dechizuk v'yisafa b'limud ha'torah b'yaser seisu b'yaser ois v'zeu even ha'beichel nitzchaynu ha'miti shasfarim Didan the asfarim Natzach. How do we know that the Seforim were victorious? If we learn in the Seforim more because of Hey Teves, then we know that the Seforim were victorious. Ad lelimud halachas b'sefer Rambam b'shulchan aruch v'noisei kelov u'b'pnimius ha'Torah Torah Chassidus sh'aydei yichol l'kayim ha'mitzvah shechiyuvim t'midi b'chol rega. The Rebbe says just like you need to learn shulchan aruch to be able to know what to do, a person needs to learn Chassidus to be able to be mekayim the 6 mitzvahs t'midiyos that a person has to do every moment, which is Amunas Hashem, the belief in the Eibish's oneness, Yichudai, Avasav, Yirasikul, Luk Meshakasav, Daisal, Kev, Yichavav, De'av, Shalom. How can you have serving Hashem with a complete heart? Only by learning and knowing about the Eibishter. How do you know about the Eibishter these days? Who's going to tell you about the Eibishter? Chassidus tells you about the Eibishter. So just like a person has to learn Shulchan Aruch so you can know how to fulfill a mitzvah of tefillin or mezuzah or Shabbos or kashrus, a person must learn Chassidus. A person must learn Pnimis HaTorah to be able to fulfill these 6 mitzvahs tmidiyos. V'oid v'gam ze ikar shal limud atzmai u'ba'ofen shechoyder kol ha'metzias shaloi kol atzmoisei temarna. What does it mean? How can all my bones, how can my whole etzem be saying words of Torah? Because there's a way of learning Torah that you sit straight by your book, and your eyes are just reading, and you don't move a muscle. But we know that Yidden don't learn that way. When Yidden learn, it's our whole entire body learns together. I was discussing with my Einiklach last week about this, that many of you I'm sure know. You look on pictures or videos of the Rebbe, you don't see the Rebbe Kemat doesn't move by the Fabrengens. But under the table, the Rebbe used to constantly be moving with his hands by the Sichas, and by the Mamorim, where it was a Maimer with a Nign and so on, that the Rebbe used to wrap his hands in a handkerchief and hold on to it tight. Chassidim would say it's about having an achizah down here in this world. But during the Sichas, so the Rebbe didn't want to show, the Rebbe was always very controlled in public. Didn't want to, for whatever reason, he didn't want to show his animation, so he moved his hands under the table. And the only ones that knew it were mainly people that sat mamish next to the Rebbe behind him, or the kids. There was a lot of kids used to sit under the Rebbe's tables by the Fabrengen, under the Rebbe's Fabrengen table, and they would see the Rebbe moving around his hands under the table, under the tablecloth. The Rebbe kept his hands and he was moving it around like you see by a Rosh Hashiva, with a pill place, the whole time moving his hands. That's what it means, Kol Tzmoisa Tamarna. When a person learns Torah, it's not if it's like reading a newspaper or scrolling through your Instagram account or whatever. You go over there with a ganze koch. It's your whole body is involved in it, every part of your being. Arucha b'chol ha'machivorim, ha'moich sheberosh ad la'ekev sheberegel, b'chol ha'chayis v'ha'islavas chol. U'b'loshen chazal ma'lahalon b'ema b'yira b'resa b'ziyah afkan, just like by Har Sinai, there was trembling, there was fear, etc., etc. So too, every single time a person learns Torah. Hainu she'esik ha'Torah she'b'chol echad u'b'chol zman. Gam b'zman ha'golos, gam b'choshech kofel ha'mechubel degolos ha'achron, hu dvar Hashem mamish v'nemer l'moish b'Sinai, mamish saying Hashem's words, ki ilu kibla hayoyim Har Sinai, ki mudgish b'nusach b'chsa Torah she'b'chol yoyim, noisen ha'Torah lashon hoiva. We don't just say Asher nosan lo nos Torah, but we also say the expression noisen ha'Torah in present tense, because the Eibishter is giving it to me right now as I'm learning it. V'chol ze b'negel la'atzmei, b'negel l'pula azulas, ki loymar la'oire rabim Yisrael la'hoisiv b'limra Torah, shekein pu'ulas ha'ashpal azulas al piat zivui v'haftarach kamoicha, hi klal god b'Torah, v'yiseirem mizazui kol ha'Torah kula v'ilach pirushahu. This is where we'll stop.